I think one of the larger problems with the lack of progress, at least in terms of the U.S. being able to encourage progress, is that I believe that the U.S. has been far too absent on the continent generally in order to have sort of the moral authority, number one, but secondly, the economic presence to use those levers of power to try to influence the decisions on the ground. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to try to increase our presence. But history is a great teacher. If the United States had been more present on the African continent, for example, and perhaps even as there was this nascent moment of potential democratic institutions erupting or emerging in Sudan back in 2019 after the fall of the former government, I believe the U.S. should have moved with economic aid in a much more robust fashion. We didn't do that, and that reduces our leverage. That's one, I think, of the reasons for the failing, that we can't correct the past, but we can certainly change our presence on the continent and perhaps be in a better position to be more supportive of these sorts of initiatives. The second piece of it, however, also is important, and that is that there are other regional players that continue to support some of the worst actors in Sudan. In the Gulf states, for example, we have at least one player who continues to provide support to the RSF in Sudan, and that, to me, is something that we should be able to address because we have stronger connections with those nations, and we ought to be able to use our moral authority to push them to engage in better behavior and support the democratic movement that the people really want in Sudan.
Yes. Now, so something like AGOA, it's been around for a while, but there's been concern, will it be reauthorized? Do many see the value of AGOA for the United States?
I think so. I visited earlier in the year, I can't remember exactly when I was there, visited the continent, visited 4 countries. It was a bipartisan group of members of Congress, and we were all committed to reauthorization of AGOA. What we may want to do is make some modifications. Like one example, if a nation meets the standards to enter AGOA, but then finally meets the threshold level of engagement and participation that we want to see them meet, they can actually leave AGOA without a successor relationship, without a new trade relationship. So the benefits of AGOA sometimes can be taken away because a country has done well in meeting the goals that AGOA sets in order to be a part of the relationship in the first place. We need to change that. We call that the graduation process. When a country graduates from AGOA, there needs to be something more than just leaving the status that AGOA provided them. That's one piece of it. And I think there may be some other ways that we can provide stronger technical support. One of the examples would be, in order to participate in AGOA, there has to be an adherence to certain labor standards, which we think is very important. But if we just say you need to meet these standards, but don't help set up with support the democratic institutions that actually enforce higher standards, it makes it very difficult to see any progress.